He can cook a shoe and it'll taste delicious. You don't even have to bring your own, he says. And that's neat. It's Tom White. This is Teaching to the Test Pattern.
Hey, buddy, welcome to Teaching to the Test Pattern. I'm Tom White, your host. And on today's episode, we have a good friend of mine, Rob Calloway from Columbia High School, just outside of Atlanta. Rob and I worked together for several years when I was here in Atlanta in radio, and it's another one of those stories where we worked together but never really hung out or got to chat much, and then he got into education, and we became good friends. In today's episode, we talk about how he got into education. We talk about how he went from being a custodian to working in the media center, talking about how he handles the speed of education, how it moves. We talk about managing expectations for his students. It's a great episode, and Rob, super gracious to really want to be on there at all. I called him originally to ask if we could use his space to interview someone else. Someone else got called to go to Chicago there was a basketball game up there. You may have heard of that. It was over the last weekend or so. So Rob said he'd step in, and we had a good conversation together with that. So before we get started, though, I want to thank my sponsor, Amatrace.com, AMITRACE.com. Listen, you can buy equipment anywhere in the world. You can buy it on your phone. You can outfit an entire studio with your phone, but you may not get what you need for your studio. You may not get the right lighting. You may not get the right cameras. You may not get the right lenses. Amatrace.com. They're going to come down. They're going to meet with you. They're going to get your goals. They're going to consult you. They're going to tell you, hey, here are your options. They're going to give you a great idea on what you need in order to do the things that you think you want to do in your space. Amatrace.com. I didn't even talk about install or training or any of those things. You're not going to find a better solution for your broadcast needs than Amatrace. AMITRACE.com. Thank you so much for your support of Teaching to the Test Pattern. So without any further ado, I give you Rob Calloway from Columbia High School.
Teaching to the Test Pattern.
All right, cool. All right, so live-ish, Columbia High School, outside of Atlanta. So I had some schedule changes. Rob Calloway decided he would let me interview him. It is Teaching to the Test Pattern. And Rob, I want to start with tell us how you and Rob's an educator. 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, that's my third year.
Third year?
Yeah, third year.
And Rob and I worked together during my time here in Atlanta at the radio station. It was weird because we worked together but never saw each other.
Right.
Another one of those stories.
Unless you were just passing through.
So tell us how you got here to Columbia High School as a video teacher here.
Mistake. It was a mistake. No, actually, I went through something that a lot of people in the radio industry go through, and that's being terminated. And once I was terminated, then I was like, you know what? I need something. I need stability, right? I had a daughter, and that was the first time I had ever been fired. But you know what they say, until you get fired and rehired, then you're not a true radio vet, right? So I was like, I don't know if I really, because I had quit several radio jobs, just trying to, and moving along in my career, but I had never been fired. So that it really made me take a step back, because as much as I love radio, the one thing that I like even more, I like money, and I like being employed. I like being able to take my kid to the movies, and it just put me in such a bad situation. I can't lie. It put me in a terrible situation, because like these days, everybody that do radio or TV, they have something else, like a podcast or a website, or they do voiceovers, or they do something outside of the business that generates revenue that allows them, in times of unemployment, to still be relevant in the industry. Well, because I had been putting all of my hard-earned, all my time and everything at V103 and WAOK, when I walked away, it was like I hadn't built anything for myself. So it was like all these unique visitors that I had going to the websites. I didn't have my own website. All of these people that I had going to the podcast, to listen to my sports show or listen to any of the shows on the station, I didn't have my own podcast, right? So it was like everything that I had been doing for them, I hadn't been doing for myself. So I hadn't been a good steward of my brand because, ultimately in media, it's about, your brand, and I hadn't been a good steward. And so I had to take the hard route. Like, I don't know if I even told you this, but dude, after my severance ran out, dude, I ended up being a custodian, because there were only like 5 or 6 of these audio video positions available in DeKalb County. And nobody's really trying to give them up. So I just had to wait. I had to wait. So I was a custodian for a couple years at Tony Elementary. And then my principal here at Columbia, she hired me to work in the library under the pretense that she was going to create this program and that I was going to get to head this program. And so, things just kind of worked out. But, I say it all the time. Like now, I got a podcast, I got a website, I got my voiceover studio set up at the house, I got everything. So I'll never, run into another situation like that. Or at least I'll try not to run into another situation like that.
So you say it was a mistake, and you say you got let go. Talk about, and this was one of the things that my wife's been a teacher for 20 years. And when I got into education, I was like, look, I'm just doing this till I find a real job. And I kind of
a real job or another radio job?
A real job. I was done with radio.
Okay.
Because, I missed like a lot of stuff with my kids because nights, weekends, holidays, I was always working. But one of the things that drove me crazy and still drives me crazy is the speed at which education moves. Like, I literally still sometimes feel like I'm running through mud. How have you adjusted to that in the 3 years?
I haven't. I mean, I'll just be very honest. When I first came in, I treated everybody like they were a paid employee, right? And I was like racking my brain because I'm like, how can you not do this, right? Like, I've been doing this forever. How can you not do this? But that's what happens when you develop a skill set. Or I can use Michael Jordan as an example. Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest basketball player to ever do it, sucks as a manager, sucks as an owner, right? Because he can't. He's not a guy that can actually teach somebody how to be great. He was born great. He has a great skill set. So in his mind, he doesn't understand why people can never be as great as him, right? So that was the same thing with me. Like, I've been doing radio forever. Like, I've been doing this stuff forever. Why can't y'all catch on? And so my principal was like, do you know how old these kids are? And I was like, oh yeah, well, you said kids. So it was in that moment that I realized, like, you know what? I got to kind of scale it back because I was, as fast as education moved, I think I was moving even faster because I wanted to try to prove that I could actually do this job at a very high level. And it was like the kids weren't catching it and I wasn't looking good. You know what I'm saying? So it was a situation where I had to slow down and kind of go back and reevaluate. And, we teach audio, video, technology, and film, but sometimes you actually have to go to a teacher that teaches another, another class, some other class like ELA or something like that, and ask them for, information or support. And luckily for me, my mom is a 40-year teacher. Like, my mom is still a teacher. She's been teaching my entire life. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to, and I've always been able to bounce stuff off of her since I've, been in this capacity. And it's helped, but I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. Anybody that thinks that teaching is easy, I don't care what class, what subject you teach, unless maybe gym. Gym might be a little easy, especially in high school, because they just let them do whatever. But when you talk about any other thing, and this is an elective, but this is an elective that can really help you and help groom you to a future, a future of financial stability. Or, you were talking to my kids earlier, and you were talking about how the worst day in radio is somebody else, is a great day for somebody else. And it's like that. Like, who doesn't want to have those kind of days? I mean, I've always dreamed of that, right? I always dreamed of being able to get in wherever free, do whatever I wanted to do. And those are the opportunities that radio, TV, media, any of those things they possess. And now social media, like, you don't even have to be on radio or TV. All you got to do is have a social media presence and you out of here. And I try to tell my students that all the time.
Yeah, the idea of just creating that presence and building and that's something that's tough to explain to students because, Insta famous and TikTok famous and those things, a lot of the students don't understand that, you had a video get 800 likes or views or whatever, but that's in the algorithm of TikTok. TikTok's like, all right, look, if I boost this, if I put it on the For You page and you get that 1,000 view bump, you can post another one until you get back on that For You page. And it's all in that vein of building your brand. So you talked about expectations and paid employees. How have you adjusted to, I guess, not lowering your expectations, but talk through, going from, because I was in the same boat. I came in my first day and I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's make videos. And they were like, we've never held a camera before. And I came into a situation where they had a sub for 3 months before I started.
Oh, yeah, so they were doing absolutely.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I joked that the first 2 weeks I was just scraping kids off the ceiling because I came in and it was like the stepdad, like, well, we've had this sub for 3 months. Now that sub's gone. And our real teacher left us in the middle of the first week of school. So we got that divorce happening. And now this guy wants to come in and us actually act right. Talk about your expectation changes. How has that happened?
Well, and you know just as good as I do because, you've been doing this a lot longer than me and you interact with teachers throughout the state. The biggest thing is not quitting. When you come in from the industry, right, and this is a prerequisite for this job, is that they tell you have to have a minimum of 2 years experience in some form of media. Well, if you've been doing that for longer than 2 years, right, your expectations, the longer that you're employed, the higher your expectations become as a professional, right? So then when you try to make a transition and you keep, running into dead ends or hitting walls, or so to speak, or hitting the ceiling because, the students might not be where you want them to, you got to kind of sit back and reevaluate and try to dumb some things down. And that's the one thing that my pride wouldn't let me dumb things down at first. But I told myself, if I don't dumb this stuff down, I'm going to be like a lot of these other teachers, and I'm going to quit doing this because 2-3 years, like a lot of these teachers do this audio, video, technology, and film for 2-3 years, and then they realize I can't do it, and then they go back to industry. And so that was my biggest thing, is that I didn't want to be forced to go back into a situation that I had really just gotten out of, and I like the, teacher provides a lot of opportunities, out of school opportunities. Mm-hmm. And I like being able to do stuff with my daughter, being on the same schedule with my daughter. So I didn't want to let these kids force me to quit. And I got one of my kids in the room right now, Cedric Presley. He's heard me quit this job at least 20 times. Like, I'll quit. I've quit this job so many times and have rehired myself because I didn't tell the principal. So it's one of those things where you just kind of got to embrace where you are, first of all, because every school is different. And every school needs and every school students are completely different. So you have to kind of understand where you are and then just kind of move at I'm not going to say a snail pace, but you just got to kind of move at a deliberate pace. Not too fast, not too slow. So then you still feel like you're engaged, because there's nothing worse than feeling like as the teacher that you've checked out, right? Oh, man. So you gotta work a balance of being able to keep the kids engaged and you got to be able to keep yourself engaged. And so that's been one of the biggest problems that, Tom, I'm up at 4 a.m. You know what I'm saying? Getting it in. And I tell them all the time, like, yeah, I've done more at this point than y'all will do all day. And, it's one of those things. I'm motivated to come in here and do this every day. But the students, they get up and, we've been students. Mm-hmm. So we know what it's like to have to be students and come in a learning environment and you really might not want to be there that day. But, I try to reach those that want to be reached.
Teaching to the test pattern.
That does it for this conversation with Rob Calloway from Columbia High School. There are 4 more episodes coming from this conversation with Rob. We're going to talk about what he did before he got into education. We're going to talk about reading and writing as punishment. We're going to talk about how to create great content for social media with your students, doing the things they already do. We're going to talk about the time that he was in conservative radio. We got all of those things coming down the pipeline over the next week or so here on Teaching to the Test Pattern. Before we go, I want to say one more thank you to our sponsor, Amatrace Broadcast Solutions, AMITRACE.com. Go check them out right now. Thank you guys so much for listening. Have a great day, and as always, go make some awesome.
Teaching to the test pattern.